So this skill we need, the key skills required to gain competency. So our experience of preparing students for this type of assessment suggests that to gain competency in the assessment, you will need to develop a number of key skills. As we already know, hello Billy. So as we already know, the synoptic exam will be a little bit tricky. Obviously, even some student said like my level 4 was easier than level 3 synoptic, because synoptic will be quite critical. So you need to make sure like you perform in the exam very well, and you utilize the time the best possible way. Sometimes the time management is really important, because don't have if you don't have the time management system inside of your plan, on your plan, maybe you know the answer but you will not be able to answer all the question. It's very important. Let's have a look. We have 3 steps they are saying. The first one is learning and applying the unit theory, logical approaches to the task, and effective use of your time in the assessment. So 3 things: applying the theory, use the logic, and finally the time management. The combination of these 3 will give you a very good score in the exam. So let's go inside and let's have a look what else we have. So you can see the first one is skill 1, learning and applying the theory. What does that mean? So we can see here they are saying, what do I need to know to do well in the assessment? The level 3 synoptic assessment will draw upon knowledge from the ethics for accountant and spreadsheet for the accounting, along with the knowledge for the following unit assessment: advanced bookkeeping, so that one we have done; final account preparation, that we have done; management accounting, costing, and indirect tax. So we have done all this 4 module, and of course now we're planning to do the synoptic. So you therefore need a bold and yet quite detailed knowledge of ethics and accountant, spreadsheet for the accounting, underpinned by an understanding of the concept and techniques involved in the unit assessment in level 3 synoptic. Example of the type of theoretical and practical knowledge that you have to acquire can include, but not limit to, the following: ethics for accountant. So obviously on the ethics for the accountant, they will give you the situation, the real life scenario, and you have to tell what is the possible threat, what is the fundamental principle involved, and what is the safeguard. So 3 things. The first thing, you have to know what is the fundamental principle for the ethics. The next thing is what is the threats that you already know: the threat of objectivity, self-interest, self-review, familiarity, intimidation, advocacy. So this is the threats of objectivity. And the fundamental principle of ethics that we have for the Dr. Pico, that is integrity. Then you have a confidentiality, professional behavior, competency, objectivity. So that's all is the basic thing will come in the exam. But the approach you need to do, it will be very important, the way you write, especially when the question is writing. So the exam will be split into 2 parts. One, the first part will be from the ethics, and the next part will be on the spreadsheet. That will be from the 4 courses we have done, that from the management accounting, from the final account preparation, from the advanced bookkeeping, and indirect tax. Now both unit 1 and unit 2, you have to pass separately, even though that's one exam, but you have to pass both units separately. For example, on the ethics side, if your score is really less, but you've done very well on the spreadsheet, the exam will be still failed, and you have to do the both exam again. So it's not you pass only one side and another side you failed and you can do only that side. It's not going to work. So you have to pass both sides at the same time. Then obviously this 4 paper we have done, advanced bookkeeping to indirect tax. So here obviously the importance, the use of accounting equation along with the correction error trial balance include clearing any suspense account. So normally they are saying the correction errors and the suspense account could be tested in the exam. Then on the final account preparation, then we can have a question from profit and loss account, financial position, sole trader, and the partnership. This 4 area normally tested in the exam. From the management accounting costing, say understanding of the need or purpose of internal reporting and the need for integrity and management account. Apportionment of costs can be assessed in addition to the variance calculation along with the management technique that can be used for decision making. So this type of question can be tested in the exam. On the indirect tax, this mainly the question from the VAT return and the VAT control account. So this 4 area you have to have some idea. For example, if you don't remember your incomplete records, you need to look at the incomplete records. If you don't remember the template of the sole trader, if you don't remember the template of the limited company, if you don't remember the template of the partnership, for example, the current account, the capital account, and how you prepare the appropriation account. So this thing has to be on your head. For the advanced bookkeeping, the variance analysis, find the difference between the budgeted and actual. So this thing has to be on your head. If you forget that already, so you need to quickly revise so that when this question come in the exam, you can do that. All right, so then we move to the next section that will have learning the theory. Now, theoretical question is sometimes is a difficult for everyone because the theoretical question will be the question that obviously not like just replying the email or something. The theoretical question will be always like from different topic area we covered from the different level. So for example, let's say you have received one email from one student and you have to from the client, from the owner, and you have to reply that, need to tell like what is going on. For example, your manager asks you, he want to do the partnership and he don't know anything about the partnership, so you need to tell everything about it. So there is few word you have to know. For example, what does that mean? The explain. What does that mean? The critically analyze. What does that mean? The identify. What does that mean? Advantage and disadvantage. So this type of thing will be that type of thing will be in the exam. Give me a second. One student just waiting for joining. Let me take her join. Okay, so on the learning theory, we have in the assessment is that you will be encounter tasks that you will test your knowledge for on ethics for accounting and the spreadsheet for accounting along with the knowledge. Still there is no sound. Can't hear. Okay, all right. All right, so what happened, like if someone tried to join, what happened? I have to like sometimes I have to log out and send the thing again. All right, so as I always recommended, like to join on time anyway. So I hope you can hear me now very well. So on the learning, the theory we have here in the assessment, you will encounter tasks that will test you knowledge on ethics for the accountant and the spreadsheet for accounting, along with the knowledge relevant to other unit. So there are a few things we have to know. The following approach can help you to learn the theory. So obviously you already know that theoretical question could be tricky in the exam. So we need to make sure like we are okay with the theory. So there are three steps here. We have revise. So revise your learning material, obviously, to refresh your memory. As we know, like this one, the synoptic is the combination of everything. So we need to make sure we revise once again to refresh our memory. So that's why I say revise the learning material to refresh your memory. That's number one. Number two, we have for each topic or technique, make sure you learn a short definition that contains the key element, what it all about. Use the learning sheet. Obviously, like in the exam, you need to make sure like you can identify the definition of the something. For example, if the question asks you about the partnership, the first thing you will be to write what is partnership. If the question asks you anything about the sole trader, the first thing you're going to write that is what is sole trader. It's very, very important to say the definition first before you start the actual writing. Add some further notes that include the most important bit of detail for each topic or techniques. This could include example of illustrate any guideline or principle. You may like to use the chapter overview diagram in the course book as a base. So basically, every time when you start a question writing, you start with the heading, with the bullet point. It will give you some extra marks, because if you say like partnership current account, partnership appropriation account, partnership capital account. So after writing that, you actually explain what it is. Doing this will set you on your way as cheap. Obviously, that will increase your marks in the exam. That will help you to get good score in the exam. Some example we have here for this techniques. So you can have a look, because I have sent it this one to all of you. So if you read that, that will be more suitable for all of you. The question practice is said being able to apply fundamental unit and ethics knowledge plus your spreadsheet skill to the task and the situation presented in assessment in the skill, that will make the difference between gaining competency or failing the assessment. During your study, you would have an exposure assessment style task on the unit assessment. Now is time to pull everything together to consolidate your knowledge along with the ethics and the spreadsheet to deal with whatever requirement you encounter in your assessment. Don't be discouraged if you struggle with application task on a particular topic. Just take this as an indication that there will be still few gaps in knowledge in the theory. You can then pinpoint exactly where you need to review your learning material before continue with more task practice. This really is an excellent way to prepare for the assessment. So obviously, it is very, very like common, like you will not know everything. Of course, like some of the area will all some student will find difficulty, but it doesn't matter. And to be honest, like there is still a few room you can get a lot of marks from there. So you don't have to know everything 100% in the exam. All you need to pass in the exam. So you don't have to worry like, okay, one question I didn't know, so what I'll do. So don't be feel upset on the exam if you see one question you don't know. So don't make yourself more focus on that area. That will have effect on the other question that you already know. So if you get upset, just see one question you don't know, and obviously that might have impact the question you already know. So you don't have to be like uh, too much serious about the question you don't know, because you need to pass the exam, and this is okay if you don't know some question. Then the next point you're going to see here, that is that you can see here, this task requires you to use a specific spreadsheet function. Now, spreadsheet question, there are a few things you have to remember. the formulas. Now in the exam, most of the formulas we're going to see that will be from the lookup. So we'll see in the VLOOKUP that will be very common for the Synoptic exam. Then you might see the pivot table. If there is a pivot table, they will ask you to do the slicer. They will ask you to remove the duplicate. They will ask you to make a chart. This is the normal thing come in the exam. So either they'll ask you to do the VLOOKUP, either they ask you to do the pivot table. This is the two main formula. And except these two, sorting or advanced sorts or replace the name, replace the value, remove the duplicate, conditional formatting, this thing will not be very difficult. Make a consideration on the what if function. This is very common in the exam. What if? So if function is quite popular in the exam. So they'll tell you, especially when you try to check any balance, they'll tell you use the formula if to check the balance. They'll tell you, okay, if this is balanced, then say it is agreed, and if it is not, then check. So it has to be done with the if. So if formula has to be on your head, and if will, like I would say more than 90% case, if formula come in the exam. So this is one of the formula is a very common. And then the next one is conditional formatting. This conditional formatting can come in the exam, so you have to make sure you know this thing. Except that on this Excel formula, you have to know how to connect the figure. For example, when you do the auto sum, when you do the sum by manually, you need to make sure you use the brackets. It's very important, because if you don't do the brackets, even if you have the total figure is right, if you don't do the brackets, when you use the goal seek, the goal seek will not going to work, because the goal seek function will be depend on rest of your work on the Excel sheet. So on the spreadsheet, if you don't use the brackets, the goal seek will not give you the right figure. It's very, very important. You use the bracket when you make a total manually. But if you do auto sum, there is no problem for that. The system will also understand that. The next thing is the absolute referencing. That's very common. Like they will give you the question, and even though for the VLOOKUP, so you'll see like when you use the VLOOKUP function, sometimes you see few of the columns are working and few columns will not work. So let's say like if I said 10 times 10 plus the VAT, and you see column number 1, 2, 3 are working, but 4, 5, 6 is say NA, that is not applicable or something, NA, any error is coming. Now, if this type of error is coming, that means the system is not understanding like what's going on. So what's going on? So this is very, very important. So you need to tell the Excel you're looking for that. So in this case, you use the F4 on your keyboard. On the F4, you have a $sign. So when you connect one cell to another cell, then you use the F4. That is absolute referencing. So absolute referencing will make the Excel more understandable, like what you are looking for from the Excel. So that will be more suitable for you to do the calculation. And one more thing, sometimes on the Excel, you see when you calculate and when you double click, so when you try to make it automatically, when you double click, it's not work automatically. It's maybe on the Excel, you have a calculate button. So if you go to the Excel with the data, on the right corner, there is the option called calculate. And this calculate have a two option. One is automatic, one is manual. So when you sit for exam, make sure it is set up with automatic. Even your home computer, when you work for a company, when you work for your employer, make sure you set up this one as a automatic, not the manual. Because if you do manual, when you try to double click, when you try to make the things done automatically, it's not going to work, because you set up automatic. You didn't set up the automatic one. So it's very important. The Excel function set up automatic. The next thing is the formulas. When you see, like for example, for some reason you forget one formula in the exam and you don't know what it is, or for example, for some reason the if function is not working and you don't know what you need to do, there is no way you can do it, or for example, there is a formula came in the exam and you have no idea about it, what it is. So what will be the best option for you? So even the formula is not working, but still you can check yourself and you write the answer there. For example, if they said uh, column A and column B total will be equal to column C. Now, even though you can see yourself like column A plus B is equal to column C, but you are not sure how to use it with the if function. So in this case, you can write on the box like balanced or check, whatever it is. You can write it down manually. And obviously, this exam will not be marked by the computer. Remember that this exam will be marked by a person, by a examiner or by a human, so he can read it. Obviously, for one formula, he's not going to take all the marks from you. So even though if you just write a balanced, if you write it is check, he will understand you know maximum thing. So obviously you forget the formula, but obviously it's not something you can help with. So he will still give you some marks for that. So remember, never leave the question empty. Even for the MCQ question, for the multiple choice question, if you don't know anything, don't leave it empty. Answer anything, just guess anything. Even though if you feel like I'm not sure even what should I guess, but still tick anything, because there is no negative marking for this exam. If you just tick anything, there is no way you're going to lose any marks, but there is 25% chances you will still get a marks, because out of 4 question, one is right. So you will always choose one. Never leave the question empty in the exam. All right, so the next point we have here, skill practice. The skill practice, the way you practice. Learn the content of unit actively and then practice applying it by reading your learning material. So the book, the question bank will help you to learn all of this. Making condensed version of your material, either to separate list or use the overview summarize. Sometimes at the end of the chapter there is only one page that is said summary of the chapter, and that will give you the summary of everything you learn from this chapter. Is very important. If you just look at the chapter overview, it will tell you what you're going to see from this chapter, and chapter summarize will tell you what you have learned from this chapter, so you can always look at that. Recording a basic definition and key point for each new topic or technique. So recording a basic definition, a key point for each new topic or technique. When you started that, you try to understand what it is. So if you, for example, if you know something, if you see something first time, you want to know what it is. So definition is very important for the practice purpose as well. Practicing as many tasks as you can and using them to identify any weakness in your knowledge. Remember, if you find difficult, if you find any difficulty right now, you're going to find the same difficulty in the exam as well. So for example, let's say now you are happy with sole trader, you are happy with the partnership, but you have a little bit issue with the incomplete records. So you have to be careful in the exam. The same issue will come, and you might face the difficulty in the exam if the question come from incomplete records. So my advice will be, during the day of the the day of the exam or before the day of the exam, you will only revise that is difficult for you. You don't have to revise everything once again. Let's say you keep revising now this week, and the next week before 1 or 2 days of the exam, you don't have to revise anything, just revise what you have difficulties. So during your revision, make a note which one you feel more complex or complicated. So keep a record of that, and before the exam, only practice that. That will be very helpful for your exam. All right, so the next point we have here, logical approach to the task. Now, when the question comes from the scenario, if the question give you some scenario and if they ask you to identify or explain or critically analyze something, you need to make sure you always connect the answer with the scenario. So you don't just say something that have no connection with the scenario. So you need to make sure, like when you write the answer, somehow you bring the scenario in the answer. So if you can relate the scenario with the answer, that will give you some additional marks in the exam. Says the level 3 synoptic assessment contain a range of task style. For example, numeric entry task where you are required to type in answer to your calculation. Written response task where you may be asked to reply to a query, suggest a course of action, or explain a concept. You can also meet multiple choice drag and drop. Now the drag and drop question is also common. You know how to do it. Just hold it by your mouse and drop it in the right box. Tick the box true or false. Type tasks to be tested in a variety of the topic. The assessment will also require completion of a number of spreadsheets to answer the task. This can be solely to test spreadsheet skill, also knowledge on the other unit. So numeric entry task. Numeric like where you have to calculate the number. For the numeric entry task, you need to read the task carefully and concentrate as you carry out your calculation. There are no multiple choice option to compare your answer with, so you need to be confident that you have arrived at the correct answer. Enter it and move on. Ensure you enter the answer in the format requested. For example, a task may ask for the whole number to be input, where another task may be asked only two decimal. So very important. Sometimes the question said make a round figure for the whole number. So you don't have to put any pence. You don't have to put anything after the full stop or after the comma. So obviously, if the question asks for the whole number, you don't have to do any decimals. While if the question said put one decimal, two decimal, three decimal, have to be careful with this, because when you read the question really fast, maybe you don't care about it. So if you have a plan, I have to look what is the decimal or it is the whole number. So if you already make your plan before the exam, then you will definitely look on that. Also ensure you are using the correct presentation when entering the percentage. 50 as a percentage of 200 is 25%, not 0.25. So obviously, when you're doing a calculator, let's say 50 divide 200, it will give you 25. 0.25. You don't write 0.25. Actually, you write 25%. So you need to be careful. If the question asks for the percentage, you actually show the percentage. Then a spreadsheet completion task. When you complete the task in the spreadsheet, for a spreadsheet completion task, you need to read the task carefully to identify the functions and the formulas that you need to use. For example, if the data validation function is requested, then this has to be used. Using a manual formatting will not be sufficient. Take a note of any formatting that need to be completed, and this include using the different sizes and style of the font. Bold and underline is very important. When you read the question, sometimes the question can say make a bold, make a bracket, make a box, make a color. So this type of a small thing you have to be careful, because you might forget to make it green if it is a positive, make it red if it is a negative, then make a yellow on the background. So this type of thing will tell you in the question. So on the question, if you see that, you write it down on your paper. On the scrap paper, you write it down, requirement number 27, make a red the negative figure and green the positive, so that when you revise, once you finish the exam, then you can see have you done it or not. Because there will be no exam paper, there will be no physical exam paper on your hand. That means like you cannot see it. So obviously it will be on the screen, you might forget it. So it's better you always keep a record of that. So it is likely that you will be working in monetary amount. So enter currency symbol where relevant and apply any rounding request in the task. For example, you may be requested to present information of two decimal places or to the nearest whole pound. Take note of any header or footer to be entered. Worksheet tab name, file name to be used can be, obviously is very important. If the question said change the worksheet name change the header name, change the footer name. So this type of thing, as soon as you see that, you make a note on the paper of that. Lastly, look out for task instruction for displaying formula, size of output, and the orientation. So obviously, if you do some work, you need to see is it like portrait or the landscape, and obviously it will be on the Excel, and the format will be downloaded from the exam. So you don't have to worry about it too much. But still, you see if it is changed for any reason, you can always sort it out. The next point we have, that is a written response task. For written response task, you will need to read the instruction given carefully and pinpoint the issue that you need to address in your answer. For each issue that you need to cover, start a new paragraph or bullet point. So it's better to start with a new paragraph and the bullet point. Make your point clearly and briefly. Don't waffle or repeat yourself. One short, clear paragraph is better than a page of unfocusing writing. You don't have to write something that is irrelevant. Write few lines, but that is relevant. That is correct. So don't just repeating the same stuff once again and again, because that will be marked by a person. He will not be happy. So if you keep writing the same stuff again and again. So it's better to write less, but you write something solid, not something repeating stuff. Make sure that you relate your technical knowledge to the specific situation given in the task rather than just giving general information. So if the question said like there is a three partner ABC, and A was planning to go for a retire, and because he is thinking to leave his money as a loan. So if they give you the scenario, don't just give the general information. Try to write their name. So A, maybe you're entitled to get this because A is planning to go for retirement. So try to bring them in your answer. So that will give you some additional marks. The style of your reply must be appropriate. Think about who you are addressing your reply to is very important. So to who you are replying. So that's very important. Then if it is a customer, avoid technical jargon they might not understand. So if a customer asks you some question, you don't try to use the word depreciation, receivable, sales ledger control, purchase ledger control, because the customer is not the accountant, isn't it? So he will not understand that. It will not give you any credit in the exam. So you need to make sure you don't use any technical word for the general people. But if it is your colleague, then you can use that. There is no problem for that. Reply to your colleague, you can use the technical term. Yeah. Then avoid slang phrase or contractions such as a don't or should not. Don't use this small thing that we use everyday life. When we reply to our friend, when you reply to someone, I know like as a friend. So I just said like, okay, don't, don't use this type of thing. If you need to write don't, you write do not. If you said should not, so it should not shouldn't. So don't make it like that. It's not a professional way of writing to someone. This is your choice. This is your chance to portray yourself as an accountancy professional. Of course, you need to show you are a professional person. If you are required to prepare a brief report, ensure that you are addressing to the correct person. If the task requires a conclusion and recommendation, then give one. The next point we have multiple choice task. For multiple choice tasks, there are some established approaches that you can follow to help you maximize your marks. The assessment has a number of different type of multiple choice tasks. Choosing an option or option from a list of statements, drag and drop, take true or false, they all require the same basic approach which is discussed in detail below. What to do if you know the answer in a multiple choice question. So if you know the answer, if you open a question and you see, oh, I know the answer, what you'll do? If you know the answer to a task, you should locate the correct answer. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, you said, oh, C is the right answer. So you locate your answer. Check the other answer. Make sure you just see the right one and don't go for that. You look at which 3 is the other answers. So you look at your answer first, the right one, then also you look the other three answer that is not the right one. Read the task again. Be very careful with the tasks that contain negative, like which of the following is not. Remember that there is a lot of question. You quickly read and you might choose the wrong one because they said which of the following is not a definition of limited company. And you said limited company have a separate entity, and you said, oh, that's the right one. And you said limited company have a limited liability for the shareholder. You said, oh, that's the right one. But they didn't ask for the right one. They asked for the wrong one. They said which of the following is not a statement of the limited company. So obviously you need to read the question very carefully. Confirm that you have correct answer. Then after that you confirm you have the right answer. So three steps. You look at the right answer first, then you look at the wrong answer. What is that? And after that you read the question again and you confirm that's the right answer. Then what to do if more than one multiple answer appears. So obviously this is very, very common as well. So if you see like if there is a more than one multiple answer is there, so what you will do? Sometimes more than one option can be seems to answer the task. In this case, you have to select the most correct answer. The approach adopted above is useful here too, but this time you have to think through the alternative a bit more. Now, one more thing, sometimes one answer can have a B, C, like they can say like choose the right statements from the below. That is a very common, like if they said a statement, you choose one. If they said statements, you might have one, two, three, four, whatever it is. So when you read the question, you need to see is they asking statement or statements. So if they use the plural number, if they use like more than one or S, that means you can choose more than one. So in this case, the answer can be more than one. If you don't know the answer, you can adopt the three-step approach. So if you don't know the answer, you can always follow this three-step approach. Eliminate the incorrect answer. So like I don't know the right one, but I know the wrong one. So you remove the wrong answer. So you said I have no idea which one is the right, but I know which one is the wrong. So you remove the wrong answer first. Assess the remaining answer. So out of four, two is not right. So remove these two, and out of these two, you assess which one is the right. And read the task again. Make sure you go back to the question, read it again, and you choose the right one. This systematic approach helps you to break the task down and work through the find correct answer logically. What to do if you still don't know the answer to a multiple choice question? So for example, after checking all of this, following this approach, still you don't know what will be the right answer. So what will be the best approach on that time? If you have been through the above steps and cannot identify a preferred answer, then you have to guess. You have to guess. Only one thing is left. I have to guess what is the right answer. What you should do, having used the three-step approach, eliminate, assess, and read the task again, to narrow down your possible answer, go with the one that feels right and move on. If you have a flash of inspiration later in the assessment, go back and revise it, but only if you are sure that you know the right answer. So you can later on when you revise, you can change the answer, but only when you confirm like you know the answer. What you should not do. So which one you should not do in the exam? Two main things to avoid: waste the time. Do not waste the time. It's a lot of students that do that. They waste the time in the exam looking at one question that even don't give you a lot of marks. So what they do, they just keep looking the question, and even they don't know the answer, they try to find the answer, and they're wasting the time. Each task is only worth a small number of marks, so time spent obviously over a multiple choice task could leave you with insufficient time for the rest of the assessment. So if you spend time more in one question, your total time for the whole assessment will be less. It will be reduced. Not answering at all, don't do it. Even if you don't know, write anything, tweak anything, because still you get some marks. This is a common yet serious error. Even if you make a wild guess, you start with 25% chances of success if there are 4 options. With a true or false question, the chances is 50%. Your chance of getting the marks if you don't offer an answer is 0. So if you don't write any answer, the chances of getting any marks is 0. But if you don't know anything, if you write anything, if you choose anything, still you have a chance to get the marks. So do not leave the question like empty. Make or write anything even if you don't know. Then you have a skill practice. On the skill practice section, we can see here it says practice as many as tasks possible. So try to practice as many as possible. If you don't know the answer to a task, don't just go to the solution at the back of the book or just guess. Think about what you have learned and reread the question. If you are still stuck, come back to it later. You may find the answer. Other tasks jog your memory. So they said, like for example, if you start practicing a question, let's say question number 1, you're not very sure. So rather than look at the solution and solve it, leave the question number 1, go to question number 2, question number 3, and by the time maybe you remember what it was. For example, you remember the format of the current account of a partnership. Now maybe you think like, oh, I forget. So let it have a look the answer that we always do, but don't do it. So you skip the question, go to the next one, go to the next one, and maybe by the time you remember, oh, the current account or the capital account opening balance will be on the credit side, then the drawings will be on the debit side, interest on drawings will be on the debit side, salary, commission, share of profit will be on the credit side. So suddenly you can remember that rather than go back to the answer and have a look. Don't do it. Use a spreadsheet. Use a spreadsheet software whenever you can to build speed and confidence in using the function, formula, and formatting. So this, in as every time if you have some time, spend some time on the spreadsheet. Do some work on the spreadsheet, because try to see the formula you still remember. Now obviously, like the if formula or the VLOOKUP is don't have to be only the question. You can make your own question. For example, you said, let's say I have a plan to go for a holiday, and maybe the food cost is 10, accommodation is 10, and something like you make on the Excel by yourself, and you just go to the other page and try to see how much was my trouble cost for few cities. So you just choose the trouble and you use the VLOOKUP to see how can they pick up from the total information. So you can make your question and you can try to see is the formula is working or not. Because obviously all of this formula we are learning is not for the exam. Actually, it's for the workplace. It's in the real life scenarios. So we need to know like how exactly it is work. So you don't want to just copy the formula so that like, oh, if the scenario change and we feel, okay, what should I do? It shouldn't be like that. Formula come anytime, anywhere. You need to know how to use it. Then the next point we have the skill, the final, that's the very important one. Effective use of time in the assessment is very important. You have to make sure you utilize the time best way. It is important that you use your time wisely in the assessment itself. Before the assessment, in order to start the assessment in the best frame of mind, you should ensure that you are particularly prepared. Before the assessment, make sure that you are registered with the AAT. So you should have the AAT registration number. Your subscription, your membership has to be up to date. So you're sitting the exam and you see you didn't pay the subscription, you cannot do your exam. So you need to make sure the account is up to date. Then your assessment center has assessment booking. So this one, obviously, you need to make sure you book your exam. So you don't go and you see there is no place for you. So you need to make sure the exam is booked before the assessment. At the beginning of the assessment, you want to make a start of the assessment as stress-free as possible to ensure that you have the following available. So you should make sure you have all of this so you don't take a stress. Photo of the identification is student number. So if you need to show your identification, you need that. Paper, pens, and calculator. These three things have to be with you. The calculator, I even recommend you should have more than one calculator, because if one calculator stop working, you will be in trouble. Without the calculator, you cannot do the synoptic exam. very important, you should have the calculator, pens and the paper. So if you don't have it, you can ask your invigilator, so he will bring this thing for you. Detail of which assessment you are planning to set. So when you enter your code, you make sure you check the detail. So when you enter the code in the exam, you name your date of birth, the exam, so it should be the right one. Maybe the admin team or the administration team, they create the code for you. Maybe this exam you are not doing. So you have to make sure like you're doing the right exam. Then assessment approach, what you should not do. The first thing you should not do, the panic. For many tasks, you will get answer straight away, and so you are likely to have a bit more time to think about some others. So for example, if every task we have a 2 minute, maybe not every task will take 2 minutes. Some question I know very well, I done it in 50 seconds or 1 minute. So I can save 1 minute from here, and this 1 minute I can use some other tasks. This question I'm not very sure about or difficult. Do not rush into the spreadsheet task without giving thought to the function and formula needed to the answer task. So obviously, like you don't have to rush. Remember, like once you the formula when you use, make sure the first thing you need to use, like when you have a open spreadsheet, first thing you save it every 20 minutes, every half an hour. You just click the save so that what you're doing is not going anywhere. If mistakenly you can cut it and like there will be no save, so make sure you save it. And obviously every single formula you're doing, you know how to see the formula. If you want to see a whole formula, you go to the data. There is option called showing the formula. If you click there, it will show all the formula used in Excel. So if you want to check the formula, you can always do that. Then what you should do, it is important to start the assessment positively and keep focus to maximize the use of your time. Work through tasks systematically. Start at task one, being answer from they're working to the is very important, because you know like the task number one, if you move to the next one, you're going to come back. So when you try to move to the, it's not like there is a two separate exam, remember that. So if you only do the first one, you make sure you do the first one first. It's not like I'm going to the Excel, then I come back here. So maybe the system will not allow you to come back. It will tell you if you move to the next one, you cannot come back. So if this is the case, you don't go until you finish, because you need to make sure you've done the first bit, then you move to the next one. Now the whole exam, you know how long it is. You can split your time based on the question you have, and you need to make sure you finish the first task within this time, and the next task within that time. If you find a task that you don't know the answer to, want to come back to it later, then flag it and go into the next. So if you want to move to the next task, you can always do that. You flag the question, you can remember like, okay, I haven't done it, I will come back later on. Try not to jump around the task, as you may risk leaving some answer at the end. So obviously if you just jump like one to one, you might forget it. So try to go like with the systematically, so you don't miss any task. Monitor your time. Do a check after each half hour. So every half hour, you make a check to assess how well you are managing your time. So once the 30-minute is gone and you see like how many questions you already done, so you see you are go with the flow. You are absolutely fine, because you still have enough time to do rest of the questions, so you don't have to worry about it. So if you see like you already spent half an hour and just done only one question, and you are supposed to do three, then you need to understand like you are two questions behind. So if you need to take the pressure, take it from the very beginning, because it will be helpful. Otherwise, obviously, like at the end, half an hour left, and you see there's a lot of things left, that will give you a lot of headache. It may be necessary to move on more quickly from tasks that you're struggling with, so you get a chance to make a considered attempt at all the tasks. Then step 5, check your paper before the end of the assessment. Having gone through the assessment once, you should go back to any flag that is unanswered task and obviously attempt to answer that. Go through assessment a second time, checking you are happy with all the answer you have given. So of course you should have some 10 minute to 15 minute you should have for the revise, and you quickly go one by one to see whatever you've done is everything is okay, so you don't take a risk. Obviously uh, you need to see, like sometimes the silly mistake happen, so when you revise once again, that will come to your attention, so you can correct that time. If you have taken this a logical and systematical approach, you should given yourself the best chance of doing well and gaining competency in the assessment. Skill practice: practice keeping track of the task you have answered when doing the task from the level 3 synoptic ocean bank. Always check through your answer as you will in the real assessment before looking at the solution at the back. Complete the practice assessment in level 3 synoptic ocean bank to time toward the end of your revision phase. So obviously, like when you practice from the revision kit from the question bank, you set up your time and you check like you are finishing on time. So obviously, when you start a question, you need to make sure you set up a time and you set up yourself like I need to finish this question in 15 minutes. So you check yourself, can you finish in 15 minutes or not? Well, this is like kind of the revision skill plan we have, and this is kind of quite helpful if you remember all of this in the exam, and obviously that will give you a very clear picture like what is your plan for the exam. So, and one more thing, if for any reason if something happened, let's say your computer is stuck, your computer is hang, it's not working, you try to download the file from the system to your computer, is not downloading, you're trying to upload the file, it's not uploading, so immediately you have to tell your investigator, because they can pause the exam for you, they can stop the exam for you, and by the time they'll sorted the computer, then you can do the exam, so you will not waste your time. So if you have any issues with that, you need to immediately tell your investigator and they can fix it, of course. And obviously, like the first thing first, when you go for a exam, make sure you have a two screen, and maybe it will be very helpful, especially you can see the question in one screen, and another screen you can open the Excel, so you can keep working looking at the question, and you can keep working on the Excel. If the computer have only one screen, maybe it's not going to be helpful. It's better if you have a two screen, because you don't have to minimize every time. It will be very helpful if you can do that. And also, like the exam, as I said, like the timing is very different, so you need to make sure every half an hour you check the time, you look at your progress, how far you're doing. The window for the exam will be for the March, it will be open from, I think, from 22nd for 1 week, so 22nd to 20 22nd to 28, I think you can do up to there. So the window will be keep open for 1 week. So yeah, 22nd to 28. But I'll still check with the admin team, and of course I'll send all of you email for the exam timetable, and you need to book your exam in advance. So I'll send you the detail, everything how to book, and you need to tell like, okay, I like to come for the exam on that day on this time. So they will send you the confirmation. So make sure you book your exam in advance. That will be very helpful.